Hey everyone, this is Samantha Farley with Type 1 Tribe, an interview series with T1D leaders all across the world. Today, our guest is Harrison Koford, a film creator who also lives with Type 1 diabetes himself. Thanks so much for being here, Harrison.
Hello, how are you doing?
I'm great. How are you?
Good, I'm doing great. Very beautiful day where I live, so it's been
Yeah,
very nice.
tell us about that. Where do you live?
So I'm based in Provo, Utah. And it was very like wintry yesterday, and now it's very spring today. So it's been very nice to see some changes. I don't like ski or anything, and so a lot of people were happy with like the winter weather, and I'm very happy to see sunshine. So in a
That's
way, I'm ironically against the good weather for where I live. But yeah.
that's funny because I'm in Denver, so you're not like too far from us.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
But we had a warm day yesterday and it's freezing today. So
Oh, well, yeah. You must have gotten our front probably. Yeah, we sent it down to you guys.
well, then hopefully tomorrow will be warm.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I hope so.
Are you from Provo?
No, I grew up in Kansas City, Missouri.
Okay.
So, yeah, I was born in Oregon, grew up in Kansas City, and now I live in Provo. I went to school here, and so I'm still living here for a little bit. But yeah, I spent most of my life in Missouri.
Okay, nice. What do you do for fun? Not skiing, we know.
Not skiing. I mean, if I had grown up here, I'm sure I would be into skiing. I would love to get into it, but I have a son. He's a year old as of 2 days ago. So, I a lot of my fun is wrapped up in what's fun for him, and that which is equally fun for me. So I do a lot of stuff with him and my wife, but I don't know. I my hobbies are very in like wrapped around with what I do anyway, like professionally as like a filmmaker. And so it's like watching movies or like talking to people about movies. Um, but I mean, I playing board games a lot. I force a lot of people to play board games with me. I think it's a good way to start conversations. I don't like hard board games. I just like a reason for people to sit around a table together.
What's
So,
your favorite board game?
um, there is this there's this there's a lot of really good ones now. I feel like we're in like a renaissance of board games. And there's this one card game called Cinephile. I'm gonna be one note with like how much I love movies. I'm just letting you know. It's this little card game that's you can play it like five different ways, and each card has like a movie and an actor in that movie on it, and you have to
Okay.
go around and kind of do like 7 degrees of Kevin Bacon kind of games. And so it's just like connecting filmographies and connecting actors. And no one else likes to play it. I don't know a soul who likes to play it with me. But if it's like my birthday, I'll like force my parents and my sister and my wife to play it with me. So I get to play it like maybe twice a year. Christmas is another good time to force people to play that game. But besides that, I just like playing like Secret Hitler and stuff like that, like mafia type games. So
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, that game sounds fun, but it does sound hard. So I can see why, like,
yeah,
if you have to know about movies to play the game.
yeah, and that's yeah, and I naturally know more than most people I know because I'm so obsessed with it. And so they're like, hey, this is fun for you, but it's not fun for us. And I'm like, yeah, I know, but I
But
it's
it's your
just
birthday.
I yeah, exactly, it's my birthday. I need to export all this knowledge I have. I need to get rid of it somehow.
Yeah, well, that's awesome. Great. So tell us about your diabetes story when you were diagnosed.
So I was diagnosed when I was 11 years old. I uh I remember very distinctly I got chicken pox in like around Christmas. And that was like what probably set it off because then in the next 2 months I started having like the symptoms. And it was my family went to Disney World in like February. So like 2 months later, and I was just going to the bathroom and I was drinking water just like so much. And I had no idea what was going on. I was young enough to like I was like this is weird, but I wasn't like putting together like I could cure this. Like I could figure out why this is wrong. I thought I was just like, man, it's like it is humid in Florida. I was like, there's so many different reasons why I was thinking this could be happening. And I remember it would be like I would drink an entire water bottle in line for a ride, and then by the time we got off the ride, I'd be running to the bathroom.
Mhm.
Which made the rides more thrilling for me because like I was like in desperate need by the end. But it was my parents were like very not concerned, but they're like, oh, he probably has diabetes. And my parents told me that because my grandmother has diabetes, right? But my parents didn't know anything about type 1 or the differences and stuff like that. So, but they just knew because they had talked to my grandma about it, and she's like, "Oh well, and she was a nurse, so she was like, he probably has diabetes." And my parents, I remember being in Disney Hollywood Studios and like sitting on a bench, and my parents being like, "So what you're going through is not normal, and we think you might have a serious condition that we need to take care of." So when we got home, I went and visited a doctor, and they tested my blood, and the doctor was like, "Yep, yeah, you're going to the hospital tonight." And so I was in the hospital for like 3 days, figuring stuff out. Um, it was like the weird thing about getting diagnosed with diabetes was like, all right, a huge part of my life is changing and how I think about stuff. Um, but it was like I felt like I was being given control at the same time, which I really like. And so I was like, okay, well, I can control how I feel and I can control these symptoms. So I never lamented it too much. I think it's annoying occasionally, and I've thought it's annoying at different times, but I've never I'm just always like, it's on me if my A1C is high, or it's on me if my blood sugar is high. So it's like I'm not gonna take this out on anything else, but like make sure I'm tracking it. And it was like a month later. No, it was like a year later. I did pens for a while, and then I got a pump like a year later. And so I have been on the pump since. I recently got a Dexcom like 4 months ago.
Wow.
Game changer. Great. Love it.
Game changer.
Although it really makes me like focused on my levels like to like I check that so often. And
Mhm.
if I'm even like about to go out of range, I'm like I got to watch this. I got to see like do I need to change these basal rates? Like why is this happening? I dose for it. Which is really nice that I can really feel level most of the time. Um
What
but yeah,
pump
and
are you on?
I have a Medtronic mini med,
Okay.
which I know is like it's like a retro pump now. I visited my endocrinologist a month ago, and she was like, "What pump do you have?" I was like, "I have a mini med," and she was like, "That's like a dinosaur." So I think this is like, it's like having it's like listening to vinyl. That's how I think of it. It's like I'm gonna make it cool again to like buy records, only having a mini med. But I don't know what new technology I'm missing out on yet. I mean, I waited out so long to get a Dexcom. They gave me like a very early version of CGM
Mhm.
like probably a decade ago, and I hated it so much. It was a closed loop with my pump, and it lost its signal so much. And I was like, I'm not doing this anymore. So I just used test strips. I just tested my blood manually from then on, and then I got a Dexcom recently. So then I was like, okay, let me see how this is, and I'm like, oh, okay, this is great.
Yeah, I'm sure it's a lot better than the first one you had just because of
Oh yeah,
technology improving over the years.
yeah, I had trust issues for a while because it like my endocrinologist brought up with me a couple times, and I'm like, I've done that, I'm not doing it. And then they finally were like, it really is not what your experience was. Like we would be shocked if you had that experience again. I was like, all right, we'll try it. And I had like no expectations. And then and now it's like, okay, this is great. This is so helpful. So
Does the Dexcom pair with your Medtronic pump?
okay, so I don't know. It just gets into my phone. I've kind of looked on the mini med menu for anything like that. I haven't seen anything. Um, I brought it up with my doctor, and she was like, she didn't know if my model could. So no, but they're also trying to get me to get a T Slim,
Mhm.
which is and so I might get a T Slim, and I know that that can be all connected. So maybe soon I'll be able to have everything in communication with each other.
Yeah, I mean, I'm still on MDI as well, so I don't know
Oh yeah,
much about the connection, but I know people love T Slim for that reason because it kind of
yeah,
does it for you. Like everything's just done for you. So
yeah. That would be so nice, right? It's like a synthetic electronic pancreas on the outside of your body.
yeah, yeah, I hear it's great. I don't know. So tell us a little bit about what you do for work.
Well, so I mean, I'm a filmmaker. I've made one feature film, and I've made like a ton of short films. I graduated from college like a year ago. So I do right now I do freelance stuff. My wife works and I'm a stay-at-home dad, but I do videos for like companies and I do wedding videos mostly. Very popular to do wedding videos out here. So I kind of just fill in where I can with free time, but with like doing like corporate videos, but primarily I direct feature films. Well, I have done one, and hopefully I'm going to do another. So hopefully I'll keep doing it. It's not something that's like a guaranteed stable income, but that's what I studied in college. That's what I've wanted to do since I was a kid. So it's like my whole life has basically been building up to this. So
That's awesome. So what did you major in? What was the?
it's called media arts at the school I went to.
Okay.
It was a BA, and I studied mostly just like film and TV stuff. It was like half production stuff, half theory stuff. So I kind of got like the best of both worlds in regards to academic stuff and then actual like application.
Yeah.
So
So what's the current project you're working on?
So I'm so glad you asked. The film I'm making now, we're calling it Out of Pocket. It used to be just called Insulin, which I think is a very unsatisfying title. It's uh we're crowdfunding it. I'm gonna be all over the place with this because I keep talking to people about this, and so it's like there's so much information I want to get out. It's it's a little independent film that me and my producer are funding. My producer is helping me write it. It's about a young woman with type 1 diabetes, and it's kind of a crime thriller. What I To give a little bit of a background, I remember I have being in from Kansas City, Missouri. I've been all over the Midwest, and I remember in Missouri and Ohio, those two states especially, I remember seeing a lot of like flyers up on different like telephone poles that was like, if you want to buy type 1 or diabetic test strips, call this number. And I remember thinking like, what is this deal? Like you can just get that at Walmart or like at any of these different pharmacies. And I was kind of looked into that because I was like, that's very interesting. What is that? Is this a scam? And I found out that like a decade ago, the most stolen item from Walmart was uh blood test strips. And that's why they have them behind glass now because they've been stolen so much. And I remember reading that, I was like, huh, that's something that has to do with me that like is very interesting. And I've looked into this a lot of just like diabetic supplies and black market diabetic supplies, which is a very messy business and something that thankfully I haven't had to go into. But I wanted to make a second film after my first one, and I've had this idea of this young lady who's like struggling to make ends meet with paying for her diabetic supplies and what this world is like and like the consequences if you try to get into it. So it's a little like subversive in the way that she's trying to get blood test strips and she's trying to get insulin and supplies. Um, there are twists in it in the premise that I don't want to get into because I don't want to give away too much because I love the script that we've written for it. And but the another big reason why I wanted to make it and why we're making it is because I just haven't seen like type 1 diabetes represented well at all in media. Um, and so many times when it's represented, it's like one part of it they get right. And I'm like, okay, you're approaching authenticity with that, but that's not exactly how it works. And so I kind of thought like, why isn't there what kind of movie could you make about a type 1 diabetic? Because I was like, that's something I can write about. That's something I know for sure. I know exactly how this life is and the ins and outs of it. And I was thinking I have a leg up on like other films of getting attention because it's like no film like this has been made. And so we started writing I was like, I want it to be a genre film. So we decided kind of like a thriller or a crime film. And we just started floating these ideas of this different stuff, of this different information that I've accumulated. So it's about this young lady, type 1 diabetic. She's trying to afford uh different diabetic supplies because it's insulin, but it's also test strips, it's also Dexcom, it's also a pump. It's like there's so many different parts of the diabetic experience that don't get talked about. And so it's about, yeah, I'm being so vague about the actual film. I'm sorry. I'm giving all the backgrounds to it. But yeah, so basically it's just she has to dip her toes into like a shady world in order to make ends meet for this. And it has to do directly with trading black market diabetic supplies and like the dangers of it, the allure of it, but it's in the messy situation around it. So
And it's sad because that does happen. Like it's, you know,
yeah,
like it's not, this is not a fake, I mean, you're making the story up, correct? But it's
yeah,
not
yeah, yeah,
this really happens in real life, and it's just, it's awful. But
yeah. It's super. It's because my producer, and she's also my screenwriter. She doesn't have diabetes, and so the more I tell her about it, and I'm talking about it, I'm getting so excited because I'm like, oh, I get to tell people about this, and she's just like, this is really like sad, and she's like, this is really rough to like hear about. I'm like, yeah, I guess it is. I'm so used to it for like a decade of having it, and so it's yeah, it's once you have like once I'm starting to use it like plot points of like stuff from my life, I go, yeah, this is a very interesting, unique situation.
I love that it's a movie as well, because I can tell people all day long like what I go through, and they're just like, yeah, okay, whatever. But
Uh-huh.
I feel like it's once you see it, you're like, wait, okay. Like
Yeah.
even I don't live with my parents anymore, and when I go home and they see me like getting a little like dizzy and wooey if I'm going low, they're like, holy crap. Like, you know, it's a
Yeah.
totally
Yeah.
different thing to see it.
It is. It's and when you try to explain it to people, because I always tell people it's like, um, this is such an outdated reference, but do you remember the iPhone game Flappy Bird? It was like really hot in 2014, but it's like this bird that is flying across your screen and you're trying to keep it from touching like the top and bottom. There are these different like pipes and you can't touch them. And I was like, that is my that's my blood sugar levels. I'm trying to not go too high, I'm trying not to go too low. I was like, if I go too high, I need more insulin, but if I go too low, I need food. And so and I've explained that so many times and it's so hard. It's almost abstract to try and think of that because I'm like, well, I could exercise to bring my blood sugar lower, or I could have more insulin. I could like suspend my pump if I wanted to bring my blood sugar higher, or I could eat something. It's like there's so many different, it's so easy to get confused whenever you're just like barely touching it. And yeah, so it's like we've written lots of scenes around different parts of like this is what happens when there's low blood sugar, this is what happens with high blood sugar. And like we're tying it into the plot of like how it affects the story. Um which I mean, I feel like for diabetics if they watch this movie they're gonna be like this is some nerdy stuff. This is real inside baseball just for me. Which is nice because my screenwriter then is able to inject all the stuff that like she would want in a movie instead of just making like this really boring story about someone who can't get like food at a vending machine for their low blood sugar like that. So
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like an awesome film, and I love that you're doing it because more people need to know about type 1 and the differences between type 1 and type 2. So I think
yeah.
that's great. So what goes into even making a film? Like where are you at in the stages?
Well, so right now we're crowdfunding it. So we have like three stages going simultaneously. One is the raising the funds for it. We're almost 30% funded. We're on Kickstarter. We have a pretty big budget. The first feature I made, I self-funded myself, and I learned not to do that in the future. But I also learned like where money needs to go to in a film and how much money you need. And so we have a budget of $75,000 and we have 21,000 raised so far. Um we've actually been trying to like get Nick Jonas's attention and like Estee Heim or different celebrity diabetics to see if they could like share it or send a little money our way. But so that's one stage is raising the money, which is kind of what I'm in charge of because it's so much easier for me to explain people what the movie's about like this. And so I've been very much on Instagram and on hopefully on different like subreddits trying to get people to like see this and pay attention and like donate to it. It's much harder because I'm not like a big voice in the film scene right now, and so it's harder for people to be like is this going to be good? They want to donate to stuff that they know is going to be good. So it's hard to sell that part. But the other thing we're doing right now is we're in like the early stages of pre-production. We have a script and we have a very light cast put together of local actors that my producer and I have worked with before and we really like. We're adjusting our budget based on how much money we have right now. And we are putting together basically just a rough schedule of shooting this summer. We're going to shoot in June. And so right now we're just prepping. It's interesting because we can't have officially hire anyone until we know how much money we're going to have. And the
Mhm.
Kickstarter closes April 18th. So we're not going to know who can work on it, how many people are like craft services and stuff like that until then. But we have a very light idea of like the main cast and the crew. Um, how much money we raise will determine what we do with that. And so then after we raise the money, through the whole month of May, we're going to be rehearsing it because we're going to have to shoot it pretty quickly.
Mhm.
It's like a hefty budget for what I'm used to, but it's so small compared to like any other movie, even like other like Sundance indie films. It is so small. And so we still have to shoot it in like a week or like a week and a half.
Oh, wow.
Um, yeah, that's gonna be fun. It's gonna be I've shot quick like that before, and so if it's my crew, and hopefully the rehearsals we'll know exactly what we're doing in every scene. But it's gonna be a blitz to make it, and then we'll be editing through July and August, and then we're gonna submit to festivals in September. So it's like quick turnaround. Um, yeah, the movie will be done in September, which is weird to think. In March, the last film I made, it took like 2 years to like fully complete. Um, but now we're using everything I learned on that for this. But so yeah, right now I'm trying to get the word out to as many people as possible. Trying to get some attention for it. We've had some great donations so far. So we're always looking for anything that's generous. And we have the great thing about Kickstarter is that there's rewards for every. If you donate $25, you'll get a link to the film. If you donate 50, you'll get a shirt. If you donate 100, you'll get a shirt and a hat. So we have some cool rewards on there too. Um, but we're just trying to get diabetics to know too. Because if I were a diabetic and I knew there's a movie like this being made, I'd be like, yeah, like I want this movie to be made. So
Absolutely. Yeah, I think that's great. And I'll make sure below to include your Kickstarter link so people
yeah,
can donate. And then, of
thank
course,
you.
you want to keep be updated as you go through everything and once it's finished. So, what festivals do you apply to? Because I know, yeah, there's like Sundance, but what other ones are there?
There's Sundance and then what runs like parallel with Sundance so they're both in Park City, which thankfully I live near.
Mhm.
Um so Sundance is in Park City and then running at the same time in the same area is Slam Dance, which is like Sundance is great and it's independent film, but there are a lot of like established directors send their films to Sundance, and a lot of established actors and like mainstream media can premiere stuff at Sundance, but Slamdance is really for like scrappy filmmaking. And so we're gonna apply to both and see whichever one we get into. There are so many local film festivals like across the country, and they're pretty inexpensive to enter into. Uh, and so we have in our budget we have like the fees for all of the film festivals, and we're gonna apply to pretty much any film festival we can. Um, and then yeah, there's South by Southwest, which is happening right now in Austin. That's a big one. Our film is a genre film, and so it's important. We want to be screened alongside other genre films. And South by Southwest and Fantastic Fest are two independent film festivals that focus on like genre and pop sensibility art. Um, so we really want to get into one of those
Mhm.
because it would be easier to fit our film in a lineup with other like if it's like a mystery or an action film or something like that. Ours will flow a lot better. Um, yeah,
And then, sorry, just because I don't know much about the film industry,
yeah.
after these, like, is there a place where you can like the public can watch the video or the movie?
So if we get into the film festival usually film festivals are for film fans to go to, but they're really like college fairs for films. They're like markets. And
Okay.
so what really is happening, if you get a film into Sundance, the film will screen, and usually independent distributions or even like Netflix or Apple will watch these films and then they'll buy the film. And they'll either like buy the whole film completely and just completely pay off the producer and say like, here's so X amount of money. We own this film now. We'll do whatever we want with it. At that point, the filmmaker's like, cool. That's what we get from the film, and it'll probably be on like Apple TV Plus, or it'll be on like Netflix. And or another like smaller distribution company will like go in halfway with other distribution companies and release it in the theaters, and it'll go that way. So the idea is, if we get into Sundance or Slamdance or South by Southwest, the idea is for distribution company to be like, we can market this, we can make money off this, or it'll just look good in our film library on our streaming service, and they'll buy it from us. And what that does is, first of all, that kind of retroactively pays the crew that'll work on the film, because most of them are going to be working for free.
Mhm.
Um, but also it puts our film on people's Apple TV or their Roku, where they're just like scrolling and they'll see it right there. They'll put on, they'll watch it. And then from that, Meg, my producer, and I could make another film. If we have like a little bit of buzz, if people see it, or like a studio's like, hey, you guys made this for this amount of money, let's give you just like a little bit more money, and here's a script, and just go make that. So it's like the springboard. Film festivals are the springboard to whatever you do next and how successful the film is. So
Great. Well, I mean, let us know how we can help, because that would be awesome.
yeah,
We could get this
yeah,
everywhere.
I know it'd be great. It would be awesome if it was just on like a streaming service where it's just pops up and people are like, let me learn a little bit more about diabetes. So
Yeah.
it'd be
How do
sweet.
you hope to make a difference with this movie?
Well, I mean, I want it's great, because what I love about this film is that it has two things we're trying to do, which is entertain an audience, like full stop, and then also educate them. Because I would love for people to go away from this film thinking, oh, well, yeah, my cousin has type 1 diabetes. I didn't know it was that. I didn't know it was that the experience that that character had in that movie. That makes so much more sense to me. Um, I mean, just talking to my producer about it when we first started coming up with the idea of it, she was so like curious. The more I told her about it, she was so like, wait, so then how does this work? Oh, what? So then what's this? Oh, but then how do you do that? And so I really want to like bring attention to the film. Hopefully, if the film makes any buzz, a headline would be like type 1 diabetic film dot dot dot, like whatever else it is. Um I would love for people to just understand the situation more, and maybe have more sympathy for it, in a sense of like, it's not easy financially or like health wise to have this disease, and so it's it's I I just want people to know about it. I
Mhm.
don't have any necessary end goals, but I just know that if I can make something that's good, that has all this information in it, then people are going to be so much more sympathetic to it, or they're going to understand it so much more. Um, I mean,
Yeah.
because I've had so many experiences where people think they know what diabetes is, and then they like, if like someone's like, oh, Harrison probably can't have that. Reese's gives diabetes. I'm like, no, I can have it. I just have to dose it, or maybe it's like, there's so much murky water. It would be nice to just be able to have like, okay, just watch this film. That's not a documentary, because I thought about making a documentary. I thought that's frankly not a lot of people are going to see as much as if you just make like a crime thriller about it. And so it's hopefully people are like, oh, I get what this is now, when they walk away from it.
Yeah, you don't want pity, you just want awareness.
Yeah, exactly. I don't want people to be like crying. I want them to just be like, oh, I get it. I get what that whole thing is. I've heard about it. um I keep bringing my producer up, but she was telling me she was a fan of the Jonas Brothers as well when we were young. And she when she found out that Nick Jonas had type 1 diabetes, she thought he was going to die. And so I was like, that's exactly what we want, is for people to not get confused about what this is. We want them to know, like, it's like totally like, you just live with it. and that's fine. You can make it easier for yourself through like diet and exercise, and but it's not something that's like terminal. So it's there's just a lot of awareness that we want to spread with it.
Yeah. And I would just love to not have to explain myself every day to a new
Exactly.
person.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. We want to make type 1 diabetes mainstream. That's the idea. Yeah.
Yes, I love it. That's awesome. So, how do people find out more about this movie and how can we help?
So, well, you guys can help by just posting on Instagram, right? It's just traffic. We just want to get the the, so we have a video that we made that explains what the film is and explains a little bit of my background. And that's on the Kickstarter page. It's also on my Instagram account, and I can send it to anyone to post. But the Kickstarter page breaks down exactly what the film's about, why we're making it, why do we want to crowdfund it. Um, we are probably going to make a Instagram page for the film. We probably should have done that already. But you can probably follow that and see more information. Follow me. That's I post about it every other day basically right now. And in April, when we have 18 days left, I'm really going to be posting a ton about it.
Mhm.
But I mean, it's hard asking for people for money, right? Like it's like you're just sending a link and you're just saying like share if you can, or if you want to like give a little bit of money. So it's hard to tell people to be like, do you know any wealthy people? Send them this link and explain to them how important it is. But if people did that, we certainly wouldn't be mad about it at all.
Yeah.
Um, so the number one way is for us to raise funds, and the best way to do that is to share it with other people.
Mhm.
So yeah, it's yeah, that's basically it for right now.
Great. Yeah. So I'll make sure to include that link below. I'll share
Perfect.
it. And
Yeah.
then hopefully the other people will see it and share it as well.
Awesome. Well, yeah, that would be perfect.
Do you have any last thoughts for our viewers and listeners?
I guess the last thing I'd say is that this whole film came from all of the times whenever like I've had an experience with diabetes, which is either like talking to insurance companies about covering. I have two insurance coverage right now, and they just kick bills back and forth between each other, and they never do anything. But it's either that or like paying for insulin or just buying any supplies. There's always a moment where I'm just like, this is so annoying. This is so, why does it have to be this hard to do this? Like I need this as bad as I need water. Why is this it was so difficult for me to get? And every time that's happened for like the last 5 years, I've been like, I need to make a movie about this. I need to tell, I like, I have so much emotion about it that I'm just going to funnel into one thing that hopefully can just explain all of my thoughts on it. And so if you've ever been frustrated by having type 1 diabetes, but not with yourself or with the disease itself, but the system around it, like support the film, because that's the kernel that began this whole project was frustration and wanting change with it. So that's probably the last thing I would say about it.
And honestly, I think we all have been there and been frustrated with
Yeah.
the system. So,
Yeah. Yeah,
well,
it's hopefully it's universal for people who don't even have diabetes if they have something else too, where they're like, oh well, I understand that emotion that she's feeling right now. So
absolutely. Well, thank you so much for sharing your story and sharing about the film. I'm so excited to hopefully be able to watch it in the summer or the fall.
yeah,
Well, thank you again for being here. We appreciate it.
thank you.